What's up, Smite fans? Welcome in. Thanks for joining us for our new series where we're going to be going over some of the newer gods released in Smite, and we'll eventually get to some of the older ones, I guess, and talk about what they do with the best players that play them. And we've got three of the best Baba Yaga players in the world joining us here today. Hurriwind, Wlfy, and Big Man Tings. Guys, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to talk some Baba. Let's start at about why you would lock in Baba in any given game. What when you think of playing Baba Yaga, what are the things that you're picking her for to do in your game?
I think like the way I would think about her is maybe like people might laugh, but like she's kind of like a Merlin in my opinion. And it's like if you like her and if you think she's a strong character right now, you kind of just pick her. She also just has a lot of survivability. I think like her 3 has 30% mitigation or something like that at max rank, and her ult makes you pretty hard to kill, especially with the recent buffs. So.
All right, sounds good. Wlfy, what about for you?
I think it's mainly her safetiness and the amount of damage that you have in her kit, right? And it also brings a random factor to the table where you don't know if she will be canceling your abilities or not. For example, if you were to play against the Raging, most of the time when you're going to be walking up to the first wave, you don't know if Baba Yaga is going to be canceling your one or not, so you can get an advantage from the get-go. And in team fights, that can be crucial as well if you're getting the silence at the right time.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that one randomness in a little bit because I think that's a really interesting part of the kit. But Big Man, what makes you look at a team composition and say Baba looks like a good pick here?
If you want to round it off, I think late game and mid game with a really strong teamfight mage, I'd say, deals the high damage and is really safe, like Harry touched on earlier. You can pick that 4th, 5th pick and just get that big high damage mage and just round off your comp with her, which is a reason why she's so strong.
Yeah, she seems like one of those gods that brings a lot of late game damage, but maybe not. She doesn't like require as much setup as some of the other late game mages, like Scylla or something like that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I want to talk about what Wlfy was just saying with the randomness of her one. How much do you guys actually think about that? What effect your one is going to provide in the middle of a team fight? Big Man, we can start with you.
I would say low-key, it's kind of important. I mean, I personally cycle through my 1 and my 2. We can touch on the 2 later, but I cycle through my 1 a lot late game and try and go for the Y silence a lot of the time, or the oval silence, as they seem for me like the best ones in a team fight where you can interrupt an ability which is like a longer cast time, or you can just like sit in it like an oval and you can just like use it as pill almost. So I'd say low-key it's kind of important, the silence one being the most important, but some of the others like the slow is also pretty good as well.
Wlfy, do you find yourself doing the same?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. The Y and the oval are definitely the most important because you can cut corners very easily with them. Peel mainly as well. The prots could be coming into play, especially for like peeling at times. But most of the time, you're going to be using the ability for damage and canceling abilities.
Sure. And Hurry, do you find the same?
Yeah, late game I think is when it's most important. I agree with Big Man there. I agree. If you had to pick any shape and like any shape combo with like an effect, it would be silence Y. I think Y is the most effective. So late game, I think the most important thing that you do is you get a Y just because it goes the farthest and it's gonna hit the most people most of the time, at least in my experience, and it seems like Big Man's as well. And then early game, I try to get a Y as well. Like as soon as I load in the game, I try to get a Y because I can tag the speed from farthest away. For the first wave.
Interesting. Okay, that's a good tip for sure. You guys also mentioned the 2. I think that when I'm watching less experienced Baba players, one of the biggest things that I notice is that they aren't constantly putting a 2 in their inventory and then trying to find a better 2 as they're walking around, to lane or whatever. What are the most important concoctions that you guys are looking for? Is it just as many reds, damage ones as you can, or are there times where you feel like the more utility parts, the slow and the damage reduction come into play a little bit more?
For me, I in general, what I'll end up with is like a 3 or 4 red potion and whatever else I get, and hold on to that for a while. So that's generally the case, but if I ever roll like a 4 slow potion or a 5 slow potion, I'll keep that as well, just because it's such a huge slow and you know like what you're using it for. You know what I mean? You have to like keep it in mind, like, okay, this is gonna be for slow. It's still gonna do good damage, but I'm gonna try to use it in a different way than I would a different one. So if I roll like 4 or 5 green, I might keep it as well, depending on the game too. Just to keep it in mind. I mean, it really is a huge power in attack speed reduction. So if you roll like 4 or 5.
Yeah, so if like there's a Baka or a Kali or something like that on the enemy team, you might decide to prioritize the greens a little bit more. Big man, how about for you? Do you do the same?
Yeah, for sure. I cycle through potions a lot late game. Like, I get pretty unlucky, I feel like, when I play Baba, so I'm cycling a lot late game. But I'm pretty satisfied, like Harry said, with like a 3 red, 2 blue, or my personal favorite's a 4 red, 1 blue. So it does a majority of the damage, and it has that little bit of slow, so you can 2 them and then hit your 1 a lot easier off it. That's my personal preference anyway. But like I said, cycling through it, getting the reds and the blues, I would say, are better, and the greens are more situational. Like you said, you're going into ADCs, AA based, like Cardies and backers and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with Harry mostly. Yeah.
Wlfy, do you find yourself prioritizing the reds as well, or do you like?
Yeah, I have to be on the same page with Big Man and Hurry here as well. I would be prioritizing the reds. Probably 4 reds, 1 blue would be like the best case, but anything with 3 to 2, same thing. Sometimes the greens can come into play depending on the team comp as well. But yeah, mostly it's exactly the same thing.
Anyone ever gotten a 5 red potion yet? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, I have.
Actually,
I dropped it on Meerkat in the scrim. 1200.
It does a lot of damage. It's serious.
That's awesome. Were you going to say something else about the 2 though, Harry?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you have just 1 blue, you proc wing blades as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You can proc wing blades with just 1 blue in your potion. It's a good thing to keep in mind.
I've got a little tip as well on the 2. So if you have a potion stored and you've got a potion equipped, it obviously has the targeter of the 2, but you can also still cast your other abilities while you have the target of the 2. A lot of people don't really think of that when they're playing Baba. From what I see, you can still cast your 1 and you can still cast your 3. So just a little tip there.
Yeah. Do you find yourself? I kind of find myself doing the same thing that I do with Nuwa, especially late game, where if I'm playing Nuwa when I've got my passive up, I'm not auto attacking waves ever if I can help it. Or same with Baba too. Do you walk around with a potion in hand and only casting spells into the late game?
Into the late game, I would say yeah. Early game is not as important because you need the AAs to clear waves and to buff camps more so. But late game, I would say most of the time I'm roaming around with a potion in hand with my 1 ready to use and looking for poke. So yeah, I would say so.
Definitely a good tip. What are some of the gods that you think Baba synergizes very well with? Do you like aggressive junglers on your team with her? Do you want another jungler that's going to scale with you into the late game? Wlfy, we can start with you.
I'm looking for a jungler that is going to be helping me through the early game most of the time, so definitely an aggressive jungler, because if you don't power through the early game and it's not going to be making space for you, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get to the sweet spot in the mid game where you want to get, and then late game is going to be all in your hands where you're going to be having high amounts of damage, high amounts of poke, so you're trying to get there as quickly as possible and you're trying to get as much help as possible to get there.
Sure. Maybe something like a warrior jungle can help with that as well, kind of create some space for you.
100%. Something like a Chop Osiris jungle would be beautiful.
Of course, Osiris jungle, the pick that everyone thinks of. Hurry, what about for you? What do you like on your squad?
Yeah, Sino's on his team, so he's got a wide range of warrior jungles to pick from. No, yeah, I think you want to pick something good early game. I think that's something that most people can agree with. I also think that picking something with like good engage is probably good as well. You don't need really setup on Baba, but you need someone to probably start the fight for you. So a jungler that can engage along with support that engage, I think, would be ideal.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where I wanted to take it for your portion here, big man, because the jungler makes sense to me. You want someone who's going to help carry you through the early game. What about your support? That 3v3 core is so important. Do you want someone who's a little bit more peel-oriented, or do you think that she has enough by herself that she doesn't need that as much?
I think she has enough by herself. Personally, what I look for, I want pretty high pressure supports and jungles in my opinion, but I also want a bit of CC as well, mainly for the ult. So the ult does a lot more damage when it sticks onto them. You get them locked down and it hits a lot harder than people may think, because it's pretty easy to avoid. If you don't lock them down, you can just walk out of it. Although it chases, it's pretty slow. But having some CC definitely locks them down in that fire circle, and you get a lot more damage, and you definitely feel that.
Do you feel like, did you agree with what I was saying earlier, that she doesn't need as much setup as some other mages, or do you think it is that important for her ultimate to get that setup?
She doesn't need it, but it's nice to have, I'd say. She definitely doesn't need setup to do her majority of her poke with her 2 and her 1, but having that extra setup definitely can help. You can lock supports down really easily with a bit of CC and do a lot more free damage, and it's kind of rare that you see it. You don't really feel the fire circle too much, but when you do make it happen, the support definitely does feel it, and you also feel it as well.
How do you guys think Baba does on sieging, both on offense and defense? Because that's such an important part of the game for mid lane mages, is how well you siege or defend sieges. Do you feel like she's strong or weak in that area? Hurry, we can start with you.
I think he's probably top 3 in the game for sieging, just in my experience. I think that the 2 is a really fantastic tool for like hitting the like ADC or mage walking into the Phoenix, try to hit it, like throw it over the tanks. I mean, she has the same problem as any mage. If she gets like zoned behind the Phoenix, you're not going to be able to defend anyway. But she also has her ult, so if they're hard committing to the Phoenix and you ult, you're guaranteed keeping them off for a wave. And if they're like blinking behind your Phoenix, like nothing keeps them off the Phoenix for a longer time from a mage perspective than Baba Yaga ult. And it's really good for when you're sieging as well, siege defense and siege offense. If you just ult as the wave is coming up, you can zone all their carries like back off from clearing the wave while your ADC gets the Phoenix when the creeps come in. I think like that's a unique tool that not a lot of other mages have like something quite the same. I mean, you have Raijin ult, but I don't think it ends up working out quite the same, for example.
Yeah, you have a lot less mobility there, and I guess that's true. There aren't a whole lot of mages with like long duration ultimates like that. I think that's a unique perspective for her. How do you feel, Wlfy? Do you think that she's excellent on the siege defense and offense as well?
She is definitely one of the top mages. I compare her to a 2.0 Merlin, but a lot stronger, especially that she gets the shield from her ultimate. She can engage a team fight with her ultimate, or a siege for that matter, or you can keep it towards the end of it. Most of the time, you're going to be able again to zone people out with your first ability, which can be either a slow or it can be a silence. Most of the time, you can even give some pros to your support, so you can actually walk in, so you can tank the Phoenix a lot better. So she's definitely very, very strong in siege Phoenix's pushes, either defense or offense.
Big man, your thoughts?
No, I would agree with both Hurry and Wlfy there. She's definitely probably like top 3, top 4 mages in the game at sieging and defending against sieges. Her Y especially is really good for poke, like Hurry said earlier, the 2 as well. The ult makes her extremely safe sieging and defending against sieges. She just got an overall very good kit for it, and she just does a lot of damage when sieging against tanks and carries alike.
What type of gods on the other side of the coin do you not want to see? If they top pick a certain jungler or mid or support, what dissuades you from picking Baba, big man?
Early and mid game, I feel like a lot of the AA based assassins can do pretty well against her. I think like when I played it against Backer a lot, she definitely struggles, I feel like, especially with how her ult used to be. She's a bit faster in it now, but when she goes into the ult, she is very, very vulnerable to the AA based warriors. I feel like Ravana as well has a pretty decent matchup into her with all the immunity he has. He can just blink on her, dive her, dodge pretty much all the damage, and get a pretty easy kill, I feel like. Yeah.
Wow, Robin good against a mage? Who would have guessed? That character is the bane of all mage existence. But I agree. I think that's something that you do not want to see when you're locking in Baba. Wlfy, how about for you?
On the other side, in terms of counter matchup, I would look more so as a mid lane. I think it's more so in terms of aggression. I would say Raging, because Raging can just cancel your dash. And the Mez can come into play, can cancel your dash, can aggress on you. So again, that paired with another jungler that can actually go on you, such as Raven, like Big Man said, or potentially Nike, that can actually eat a lot of damage and still sit on you. She can struggle a lot because of that reason.
Sure. I think that's a good point for sure. Hurry, what do you not want to see when you lock in the Yaga?
Yeah, I agree. As far as mid lane goes, it's probably just Raijin because he's an aggressive early mid game mage that can actually just go on you and cancel your dash and has enough damage to just kill you through the ult shield. But for junglers, I also agree. There's a lot of agreement going on. I just want to say that. I thought there'd be a lot more disagreement. I thought I was going to be like, oh yeah, Baba Yaga's great, and you guys are kind of saying she's good as well. So kind of disappointed about that. Anyway, agreeing about the auto attack junglers until maybe you get towards later in your build when they have to be a bit more scared of you, they'll die in a knock up or something. But yeah, Kali, Baka. I don't really know besides that. I would say Erling before her 3 got a bit fixed up could cancel your dash a lot. But now that can't happen anymore, I don't care as much about Erling, but he still has a lot of stuff that can displace you, but I suppose that's not unique to Baba. But just characters that can stick on you when you're in the ult and still kill you. But a lot of junglers can't do that. You're CC immune the whole time, and now you have no straight penalty, and you have Fatalis essentially. So it's pretty hard for most junglers to do that. Kali, Baka are exceptions. So
okay, hear me out. Chuck jungle. What a
if Sino's piloting it, sure. It sounds like he's poisoned your brain, to be honest. But
yeah, I just thought about it now. I'm going to mention that to him, actually. I'm going to mention that to him.
Well,
how about we put Chalk in mid, though?
Yeah, exactly. If we put him mid,
you're the only person. You're the only person.
This is devolving.
To pull
I've got to move us on.
Okay.
I can't
no
take
problem.
this from a Baba Yaga video to a Chalk mid video, though maybe that's something that people want. To round it out, guys, I want to talk about the builds. And Hurry, maybe this is where your disagreements could come in, because you and Big Man are the two that have played the most Baba in the SPL.
Yeah, at least.
Hurry, let's start with you. You went for a lot more of the stacking items, utilizing that passive. What sort of build path would you recommend for players playing Baba Yaga?
Yeah, to be honest, I've actually changed my opinion a little bit since you've seen me play in SPL. I think Book is super essential on her. It's getting buffed as well, 150 gold cheaper. So in my opinion, you'd build it every game for sure. And then you'd go cooldown boots because it's better with Book of Thoth. And I just think it's a better item in general, unless your character synergizes with the lifesteal boots. And then I would go pen item. Now you probably go Magus, but before, and maybe Divine if you really need it. And before I would have went maybe Deso in that spot as well. And then I think you can go Urchin Reaver if you're not going Reaver Shard, and then you'd have to go Shard last if you go Urchin. But I think some games, if you're going to be one of the primary targets, I think Urchin is just one of the, if not the best item besides Mantle for just straight up one defense item, and she stacks it faster than everybody else. If not gets it stacked where some people wouldn't get it stacked at all. So I think throwing an Urchin there is the only little weird thing maybe that I would do.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Big Man, I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, you went the pretty standard up until that point, double pen build that a lot of other mages are going for. Is that still your preferred way to go right now with Baba?
No, not anymore. I agree with Harry. Book of Thoth's pretty essential on her. I went through some phases where I was deciding between the standard pen build and then the Book of Thoth idea. But the only reason why I went the double pen build was to help that early game issue. That was pretty much the only reason for it, because I saw in scrims how she was really good mid-late, but that early game was just so poor, I felt that the double pen could help her get to that spike quicker. But I do agree with Book. Probably you want to build that first, pretty much 100% now, especially next patch with the buff, like Harry said. And then Harry was pretty much spot on with the rest of the build. You go cooldown boots, probably Magus next patch. Would have been Deso this patch if they didn't have any healing. And then Reaver, Coin, Shard, or if you want to go to the Urchin route. But yeah, Harry's right for sure.
Wlfy, you find yourself in agreement?
Yeah, I'm finding myself in an agreement. However, I do think that you can potentially get a double stacking item there. You definitely want your Book of Thoth, which is early game. One thing that goes under the radar is also the Shrine. That the Shrine now is going to give you up to 70 gold. You can just put one basic attack in, you're going to be getting 70 gold by default. So it's going to be making your early game a little bit better in terms of getting enough farm so you can buy your Book of Thoth. Not only that, but late game, she is one of the only mages that you can go Warlock staff on because you can stack it up so quickly. Most mages, or in fact all of them, you don't really want to get Warlock staff because you find it's a poor item. But you can definitely get it as a maybe 5th, maybe 6th item. It's not going to be that bad because you're going to be stacking it up so quickly.
Yeah, Warlocks I feel like is something that's worth exploring, but I agree that going book boots into Warlocks is probably just too slow. Do you guys agree with trying to go Warlocks 5th or 6th? Do you think that's viable?
Yeah, no, I could see it. Maybe 6th, if anything, but I just got a bad it's not even like a math thing. I feel with Warlocks. I just have a bad feeling when I build it compared to other items. Like I'm hitting somebody. I'm just like, if I had like Rod here or like a Shards, they would probably die. But I've got Warlocks. I've got like 300 health. That's not really doing too much. It's got 10%, but it's just the feeling thing for me. That's why I built it like once, and then I'm just like, even on the new patch I tried, I'm just like, you know.
I can see that, especially that like Rod is such a good item. Every single time you're going to be hitting someone, especially late game, if you had Rod, like the scaling is just so much better.
Yeah, Hurry,
but I can see potential.
You were going Warlocks for a little bit, right? You just feel like it's a little bit too slow now.
Yeah, I don't know. I just agree with it. Just didn't feel good. Like I kind of wanted to go the item because it has synergy with Book of Thoth, has synergy with their passive. It's 10% pen. Surely, if it's going to be good on any character in the game at any point in time, it should be her and that 3rd item slot. But it still wasn't that good, I don't think. And I was building that for a while. It just feels so slow. Like usually, like I finish my pen item 3rd, and then I feel like, okay, I'm really doing damage now. Like I'm getting my book stacked. I've got my boots down, I've got my pen item, I'm really doing damage. And when I got Warlocks, I didn't feel like I was actually doing that damage to my 4th item, and that is just way too late, I think, especially with how fast like some of the games can be ending these days. I do want to explain something with the passive as well, because I was talking to Nika the other day who didn't understand this, but your passive will prioritize the stacks on low stacking items like mages or high stacking items like mages and Book of Thoth over healing you. But if you have under like 50% of your bar, your house juice, as I would call it,
the juice,
right? And you have Urchin, it will actually heal you, or Coin, it will actually heal you instead of prioritizing the stack because you don't have enough for one stack of that item. So you actually need to be careful that you don't walk near your house when you're poked when you're trying to stack those items, unless you desperately need the heal for whatever reason, or if you're about to back for one of those items, and make sure you don't waste it as well because it will heal you instead. Whereas the other items, it will prioritize stacking because it doesn't take very much of the bar to add to your stacking.
I didn't know that.
Just
either.
one more.
We all went to that today. Yeah, go for it.
One more thing on the basis of the house. I see it a lot more these days, but when Baba was first being played, I don't think a lot of people did it. I know Hurry and myself did it while we were playing in scrims, but when you start the game, you want to move around as much as possible to get the house moving, so you can build up the essence, so you get your mages blessing faster. There's a pretty good route. You just kind of just run around out there. Is on an optimal route. You can get between 14 to 18 or 17 stacks on Mage's Blessing before minions even spawn. Just a little tip to get Mage's Blessing done faster, so you get that cooldown reduction.
Yeah.
To move around.
No, as many tips as you guys. That's what the whole video is about, of course.
Okay. So this one's like not maybe as important, but I think it's still like relatively important. If you're defending a siege and you know what lane they're gonna come down, like for example, a lot of times people come down dual lane. You want to walk down from the lane before they come to get your house to sit in front of the Phoenix because it's 5% damage reduction for everybody. And you might as well do it if you're not doing anything else. And it also it's faster. So if they're like in it and you're like ulting your house and someone's going on you in the back and the house is just what's sitting around people, fills it up, you get more healing, you know. That's one reason she has a lot of survivability, by the way. I forgot to mention as well that I don't think people realize. She gets a shield when she ults and your house comes to you. So if you're taking damage and you don't have a stacking item, you're getting the full heal from the passive from the house because it's on you. Or you become it, whatever it's supposed to be.
When you go house mode is what you're saying.
Right, when you go house mode, yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a couple important extra tips there I want to get in. aggro.
100%. 100%. Listen, maximizing the house is what it's all about. You know, real estate Baba is really what you guys should be focusing on. Well, I hope that all of you mid lane players out there have learned a thing or two, and hopefully all these tips will help you in your games when you're piloting Baba Yaga to hopefully some TP. So thanks so much for watching, and thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.